Hi, my name is Maria 5. Welcome to my channel if you're new. Welcome back to my channel if you're not so new. And tomorrow is Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And that includes mothers of fur babies. If you're a mother, then happy Mother's Day. So I have a tea and a make and a book, a really amazing mother for the novel. But first, the tea. So the tea I have is, I will just take the lid off. Here we go. Yeah, so this is black Assam tea. And I've added a tablespoon of jasmine. And yeah, usually jasmine's added to green tea, but I've added it to black Assam tea. And it's quite good. It's a bit delicate, so don't mind that at all. And the make today, I'm going to describe to you. I made it earlier because, well, Mother's Day cards had to get into the mail. So these are the Mother's Day cards that I made. This is watercolor on watercolor postcard. And I made 3 of them. And as you can see, the postcards, I've just flipped them over. I'm about to glue them onto an actual card. This is proper cardstock. It's been scored, but of course it's up to you to fold it. So I am struggling because it's a little bit stiff here and struggling to fold it, pressing it down, and then using my popsicle stick to get a really crisp edge to it. Of course, times 3. And here I am pouring glue onto the back of the postcards, and I'm kind of experimenting because I actually have no idea how much glue to use. And so the first one, there's less. The second one, there's a wee bit more. And the third one, there's way too much, but I don't know that at the time. Slowly pouring the glue. All right. And then taking my popsicle stick and spreading it out a little bit, somewhat evenly. I don't want to go over the edges because I don't want the edges to get icky, but you can see how much excess glue there is on there. That was just way too much, but hey, what do I know? No, not on the other postcard with glue. And then pressing it down on the cards. I eyeballed it, but of course you could make slight pencil marks to make it perfectly centered. Luckily, I'm blessed with a pretty good eye that way. And then you can see them kind of curling up again. Heavy paper, heavy cardboard, and yeah, so I'm piling them on, feeling like maybe there's a little bit of weight that needs to be added to that. There's the third one. So a little bit of overlap, but not completely stacked, just in case. You never know with glue. And this is parchment paper that I have used, obviously to prevent the sticking. Not enough on that edge. And then a stack of books, of course. What else would I use? All right, so leaving that sit, and then here we have the finished product. Mother's Day cards ready to send. Happy Mother's Day. And the novel today. The novel today is The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon, 2023. This came as a recommendation from my friend Shannon, and I got the recommendation last fall, I have to admit, and then I ordered the book, and it came with a stack of other books, and there was no renewing, and so I ended up sending it back without giving it a shot. So then I had to wait a long time to get it again. And finally, here we are. Okay, so we are in Massachusetts, and this is November 1778 until April 1789, about that time frame. So We are introduced to Mistress Martha Ballard. She's the mother of 9. She is married to Ephraim Ballard, and they have 9 kids. They own a mill and a farm and horses. And rivers are very important for a mill to get the wood to move. And crossing the frozen river plays a big part in their doings. And the only travel is with horses. So in horses, of course, they won't take a horse over the frozen river. So then there's this longer trek. At any rate, it is November and we have a body frozen into the ice. And this is named as Joshua Burgess. Martha is called to identify the body, and she makes her medical examination, and he has to be cut out of the river. And Sam Darwin falls into the river, and he is the one who originally discovers Joshua. They have to cut him out of the ice, and she notices very distinct marks as though he has been hanged. So there's beatings, bruises, and broken bones, but this dark line and bruising around the neck, which is consistent with someone that has been hung or hanged. So then we are introduced to Rebecca, the parsonage wife, and she is horribly beaten up, saying she's been raped. She names Joshua Burgess and Joseph North. Burgess is dead now, and North is the judge in Massachusetts, giving and calling in loans, treating women with contempt, and generally taking what he wants. And he says that very clearly. So this goes to court through several hearings, and Martha goes ahead and testifies. She keeps a journal. She is one of the few women to read and write, and she keeps a journal of all her doings. She is a midwife, and she's delivered over 1,000 babies and not lost a single mother. And so in these diaries, journals that she's kept, she keeps track of everything that goes on, and so of course has these to rely on as evidence. And women back then were not allowed to testify or even say anything at all in court without their husband being present. Yikes. Anyway, she has the accounts accurately recorded, reads them, and she plays witness. She gets called to Rebecca's side and plays witness and records everything in these journals, and then the justice system takes over. And it is Massachusetts, the late 1700s, and yeah, North has tried every trick in the book. He leaves, he goes down, I want to say Chicago, but he leaves instead of going into prison. So prison by night, but they're allowed to be their own person during the day. But yeah, anyway, Martha detects and she collects stories and accounts, and wow. I'm going to leave you there. I'm not going to give you too much away, but it is a really interesting historical documentation of what goes on. And one of the cool things actually is that Martha Ballard was a real midwife, really, really, truly, in the 1700s. She died in 1812, and she weighed in on many paternity cases. They would come into play because the state would want to collect money from the father rather than have to pay out of the state coffers, of course. So she plays a big role in that. It's a bit cheesy why, but there you have it. And Lawhon says that about 70% of her work was true, but of course she does fictionalize it. And we come to know Martha Ballard. She takes poetic license, but we really get to feel who she was as a person. This really brilliant portrait of life 200 plus years ago, and how life was hard. Really, oh my goodness. I've often had that discussion with people, and it's like, to have the old days. And I was just like, no, thank you, to chip water from the river so you could bring it home, so you could boil it, so you could wash your clothes, and everything was just so much more work. I mental. So Martha Ballard actually lived to be 77 years old, which is crazy for back then. Back then, the average lifespan in Massachusetts was about 50. So her and her husband did very, very well. And that has to be, of course, due to physical labor and good eating. And yeah, there was no place for them to be sitting back watching TV, which we're all guilty of. I know. I mean, I get caught up in Netflix too. But yeah, back in the day, there was just no time. There was always something to do, whether you were mending or fixing or feeding the cows or the chickens or the horses. Like, oh my goodness. And of course, being a midwife, she was often called at all hours to be with the mother and help deliver the births and all the varying kinds of births that go on. Some of them were happy and joyful. Some of them were like the 8th or 9th. And it was like just a lot of work. And in one particular case, the woman did not want to have the baby. And so she kept not doing what she was supposed to do. And because of the circumstances under which the baby was conceived, you can imagine. And Martha says, you have to do the work. If you don't do the work, you will die. And all of a sudden, the light goes on and she goes, oh, it's like, yeah, you have to go through with this regardless of whether or not you want it. So yeah, it was just really, really interesting. I am so pleased to have not been born then. I think life was very, very hard, especially for women, but I believe for everybody. As a pioneer for everybody, I think life was hard. But yeah, I I like all my modern conveniences, all my mod cons. Thank you very much. Anyway, with that, I will leave you. Please like, please subscribe, and thank you for joining me. And we will see you next Saturday.